Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Nena Bardwaj. The SNP have slammed the Prime Minister for robbing future generations of opportunity after Tory immigration plans were set out at their party conference today. Theresa May confirmed the UK government's plan to bring in a post-Brexit immigration policy which will discriminate based on salary, and which could see British citizens having to apply for American-style authorisations and visas to visit and work in Europe. SNP spokesperson on immigration at Westminster, Stuart MacDonald, said, "The shambolic approach to immigration by the Prime Minister makes SNP calls for the devolution of immigration powers to Hollywood more timely than ever, and I repeat these calls so that the Scottish Parliament can introduce an immigration policy that enriches our nation and our economy." During the conference, David Mundell also called on First Minister Nicola Sturgeon to end Scotland's constitutional Groundhog Day and take the option of an Indy F2 off the table, saying that she should instead get on with her day job. Responding, SNP Deputy Leader Keith Brown said, "The fact is, it's not up to David Mundell, Ruth Davidson or any other Tory politician to dictate Scotland's future. It's up to the people of Scotland. If David Mundell was at all interested in avoiding the risks of a hard Brexit, he'd be getting behind our efforts to protect our place in the single market." Arlene Foster has said that the Good Friday Agreement is not sacrosanct and that the landmark peace treaty could be altered to accommodate a Brexit deal. The DUP leader said that the historic agreement could evolve in the EU context and expressed frustration at warnings from pro-EU campaigners over Brexit's potential to undermine aspects of the international treaty. The party campaigned against the Good Friday Agreement in 1998 when it was approved by referenda on both sides of the border. Her chief whip, Geoffrey Noddleson, who played a key role in helping negotiate the DUP-Tory deal, went even further, saying that changes would have to be made to the agreement in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Arlene Foster's comments on the Good Friday Agreement come the day after she said she would support Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Boris Johnson has slammed Theresa May's Chequers plans for leaving the EU, labelling it a cheat during the Tory party conference in Birmingham today, saying that now is the time to chuck Chequers. He added that if Chequers is agreed, I'm afraid it will only embolden those calling for a second referendum. The former Foreign Secretary has been arguing for months that the Prime Minister has set out a plan that leaves Britain too close to Brussels. Meanwhile, the Principal of the University of Glasgow, Sir Anton Muscatelli, today warned that a hard Brexit would represent the most unhinged example of national self-sabotage in living memory, and told politicians that they had a moral obligation to avoid it. Speaking at a summit on the impact of Brexit in Glasgow, the Economist said there was no comparable experience similar to a no-deal Brexit and that the consequences would be dire. His comments come following analysis by the Fraser of Allender Institute, which found that exports to the EU supported 40,000 jobs in Glasgow. There has been a £74 million increase in revenue raised through the Land and Buildings Tax (LBTT) and Scottish Landfill Tax (SLFT), according to the latest figures published by Revenue Scotland. Scotland's tax authority collected over £707 million in land and buildings transaction tax and Scottish landfill tax between 2017 and 2018. Minister for Public Finances Kate Forbes said, "These figures show that our progressive approach to taxation is working, with LBTT revenues £50 million higher than forecast." The combined total of LBTT and SLFT collected since Revenue Scotland began operating also reached £1.8 billion. 1 in 4 children in Scotland live in poverty, according to the independent Joseph Rowntree Foundation's State of the Nation report, entitled Poverty in Scotland 2018. The majority of the 230,000 children in poverty are restricted by their parents' inability to work, mainly due to disability or the struggle to juggle work and childcare, with mothers being disproportionately affected. Austerity and changes in the UK benefit system with the introduction of universal credits and the two-child cap have been a major factor in driving increases in child poverty. The report recommended that the UK government make changes to employment law to enable more flexible working as well as greater shared rights to parental leave. The JRF also recommends that the Scottish Government's forthcoming strategies on disability employment and the gender pay gap should be targeted at reducing child poverty. In a report to the Scottish Parliament, the Auditor-General for Scotland, Caroline Gardner, has concluded that the NHS Highland and NHS Ayrshire and Arran are facing significant financial challenges which are likely to continue in the years ahead. The report notes that these boards were unable to deliver services within budget and saving targets haven't been met, as a significant proportion of the savings to date have been one-offs. The death toll from Indonesia's earthquake and subsequent tsunami has now risen to 1,234 people, according to the country's disaster agency spokesperson, who updated the figure at a news conference in Jakarta this afternoon. The magnitude 7.5 earthquake and the tsunami which followed was said to be as high as 6 metres in some places when it struck Palu and nearby areas on central Sulawesi Island. The agency added that 799 people are severely injured. Hundreds are still waiting to be evacuated, with people running out of food, fuel and other essentials as aid has been slow to arrive. Scottish-based aid organisation Mercy Corps has mobilised a team of emergency responders, including experts in disaster response, into the areas which have been affected. Mercy Corps are also accepting donations for life-saving aid and recovery efforts via their website. A ferry with around 300 people on board was stranded in the Baltic Sea today after the ship experienced engine failure, Danish operator DFDS Seaways said. The breakdown aboard the Regina Seaways produced smoke which triggered the ship's fire extinguishing system, shutting down the engine, whilst the vessel was in international waters in the Baltic Sea between Poland and Lithuania. No injuries were reported and an evacuation was not immediately necessary. 3 researchers were awarded the 2018 Nobel Physics Prize today for inventions in the field of laser physics which have led to advancements in corrective eye surgery. 96-year-old Arthur Ashkin of the United States won one half of the 9 million Swedish kroner, or €870,000 prize, for his invention of optical tweezers, which grab particles, atoms, viruses and other living cells with their laser beam fingers. The other half of the $1.1 million prize was shared between Gerard Moreau of France and Donna Strickland of Canada, who is only the third woman ever to win the Physics Prize after 55 years. The honour comes as the Swedish Academy has postponed the announcement of the Nobel Literature Prize for the first time since 1949, amid a Me Too scandal and internal disputes. The Scottish Premier Football League, or SPFL, has announced that it is exploring the option of a semi-final switch by moving one of the forthcoming semi-finals to an alternative venue. ACC Bernard Higgins released a statement ahead of next Sunday's games, saying, "We're aware of the issues and concerns that have been raised over the last few days about the date and the venue of the League Cup semi-finals. As a responsible organisation and taking into account these public concerns, I think it is sensible to discuss the issues raised with the SPFL and other stakeholders, and I've asked the SPFL to look again at the transport plan so we can make a full public safety assessment." Police Scotland has asked the UK's most senior police officer responsible for football to carry out an independent review of the policing of matches in Scotland. Deputy Chief Constable Mark Roberts, the National Police Chiefs Council football lead, will be responsible for leading a small number of experts who will review operational planning for matches, intelligence gathering and resource deployment. Police Scotland's Deputy Chief Constable for Local Policing, Will Kerr, said the review, which is expected to be completed by the end of the year, would also examine how the policing of football felt to those involved, including supporters, clubs and wider stakeholders. The SNP has warned the Chancellor against delivering an economic body blow to Scotland's whisky industry, following reports that the Tory government is set to use this month's budget to increase whisky duty. The news comes despite the Scottish Whisky Association saying that a freeze on duty has boosted investment and created jobs in communities across Scotland. Indeed, the Treasury's own figures revealed that the freeze on spirits duty announced in November 2017 had increased government revenue by £113 million between February and July this year. Scotch whisky is responsible for roughly a fifth of UK food and drink exports, and the industry supports over 40,000 jobs, both directly and through its supply chain. Responding, SNP MP Brendan O'Hara said, "It's high time the Treasury listened to the concerns raised by the industry and retained the duty freeze on Scotch whisky. An unnecessary tax hike would seriously jeopardise the sector's ability to thrive and grow in an already challenging economic environment. That's all for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Good evening.